In the 1950s and 1960s, scientists warned about the new climate change. Notable scientists such as Callendar, Roger Revelle, Gilbert Plass, and Charles D. Keeling produced reliable and detailed lines of science evidence. Charles D. Keeling's Mauna Loa, Hawaii, obervatory measured atmospheric carbon dioxide with great precision. The Keeling curve became an important climate science graphic representing atmospheric CO2 changes. It provides many lines of evidence as seasons change. The conclusiveness of rising atmospheric carbon dioxide, CO2, remain uncontradicted. Worldwide photosynthesis seasonal changes testified to the sensitivity of the Mauna Loa CO2 Observatory. Code Red. In 2021, the International Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, finally rang the alarm, Code Red. How did we get to Code Red for humanity's future? Look to the simple answer from philosophy: intergenerational moral corruption, passed from generation to generation. And it continues to this day for nuclear weapons and the new climate change. In 1960, the National Science Foundation created the National Center for Atmospheric Research, NCAR. Both UCLA and the RAND Corporation created a computer modeling laboratory, and RAND Corporation serves the U.S. military and would receive funding from the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, DARPA. Computer systems ramped up programs focused on understanding and developing atmosphere, ocean climate models. Their goal, to understand the meaning of increased concentrations of CO2 ppm in the atmosphere. Both the atmosphere and global ocean exchange CO2 ppm as it rises and decreases, one from the other. The Office of Naval Research funded related research. President Carter, as all following presidents, benefited from advanced computer modeling. Since 1960, computer power has increased at an increasing rate. Some baby boomers will recall the IBM 650 business computer, and that seemingly magical power to consolidate unimaginable quantities of information. President Carter benefited from computer technology and computer models, as did all following presidents. Today, climate scientists combine many lines of evidence in their climate model. Johnson 1963 to 1969. By 1965, climate change became more apparent as an existential threat to humanity. In November 1965, the President's Science Advisory Committee advised President Johnson on the science, evidence, and potential threats. He heeded their advice and announced the growing dangers of increasing atmospheric CO2. Then the National Science Foundation published the report Weather and Climate Modification, report of the Special Commission on Weather Modification. This weather modification means human-change climate, which we now call the Anthropocene. We call this era the Anthropocene because humans are now the single source of climate change, not geography. The Weather and Climate Modification report stated that CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere increased 10 to 15% in the 20th century. These changes were causing severe heat imbalances. President Nixon 1969 to 1974. President Nixon had the same climate change information as President Johnson and more. As science advanced and atmospheric carbon dioxide density increased, the evidence became stronger. Additionally, in 1970, President Nixon stated in his annual plan for participation in the World Weather Program, in the longer term, the quality of the atmosphere may determine whether man survives or perishes. Dr. David, Director of Science and Technology, stated the following: the federal government must play a leadership role because these efforts are so large and so long-term that the fragmented power industry cannot be expected to do the job itself. Dr. David moved to Exxon soon after leaving the Nixon administration. Note, we have no cause to believe that Dr. David acted in bad faith by moving to Exxon. Incidentally, he later wrote a textbook on physics for high school students. I make the point because revolving doors exist between the U.S. government, corporations, and the military-industrial complex. President Eisenhower warned us before leaving office. He would know if anyone knew. In any case, we know that by 1979, Exxon knew greenhouse gases add to global warming, the cause of climate change by increasing the Earth's greenhouse gas, atmospheric insulation. The Earth's insulating blanket grew denser with additions of CO2 and methane. Also, the U.S. Department of Commerce reported that the panel on electrically powered vehicles recommended that emissions standards be set for vehicles. 2 months later, President Nixon wrote to his director of the Office of Science and Technology regarding the UNESCO Conference on the Environment, Man in the Environment, A View Toward Survival, on the obligation and responsibility of government to protect future generations from global climate change and polluted oceans. Baby boomers may also recall the name John Ehrlichman from the Watergate escapades. John Ehrlichman pursued the development of non-internal combustion engines, EV, electric vehicles. I'm saying that John Ehrlichman wanted to replace internal combustion machines with EVs back in 1968. So Ehrlichman knew the importance of electric cars and the dangers of ICE machines. So a Republican president, President Nixon, sought to make liberal adjustments to the American energy system, a liberal fix. This fact becomes more important when viewing the presidents Reagan, George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump videos. Democrat presidents do not share the depth and breadth of climate deception as Republican presidents following Richard Nixon. These facts remain uncontradicted. Again, Nixon and Ford recommended a liberal fix to catastrophic climate change. It made sense without the political terms, too. Standing in the way of needed energy adjustments, politicians pushed to protect the status quo, business as usual. We will see more of this behavior after 2024. The U.S. could not help itself. Fossil fuels serve like a free lunch natural resource, and ICE machines create too much profit. President George H. Bush, to his credit, did point out that the U.S. is addicted to oil, if not fossil fuels. Yep, we need to look no further to answer what happened. Fossil fuel subsidies paid billions of dollars to suck fossil fuels out of the earth. Plus, externalizing the costs to future generations explains American intergenerational moral corruption. American exceptionalism was not so exceptional, after all. As for other nations, such as China and India, catch-up became their rationale for intergenerational moral corruption. They externalized the cost of fossil fuels to the future to cash in on the best thing next to a free lunch. Take it all about, the Ford administration gets credit for creating a first corporate average fuel economy standards CAFE. So again we see that some Republicans understood the crisis at hand, and these Republicans had done the right thing. They were practicing what I call intergenerational moral responsibility, or IMR, and not intergenerational moral corruption, as today. More will follow about presidential climate deception. Be sure to learn more about the history of climate science. Visit and share NASA's Climate Kids website.